"This deal will kill you," the waitress whispers to the Mafia boss, moments before a $100 million deal. She never meant to get involved. One overheard conversation in Chicago's most exclusive restaurant, and suddenly she's making a split-second decision that changes everything. He doesn't believe her warning is coincidence. Not when her father is the judge who sent his father to prison. Not when everything about her seems too perfect, too convenient. But as he forces her into his world, as both prisoner and protection, dark secrets begin to surface. The $100 million isn't just about power. It's about finding someone who disappeared years ago. When betrayal strikes from within his inner circle and the FBI closes in, blood spills on both sides. The waitress who saved his life might be the only one who can save his soul, if he doesn't destroy her first. In a world where loyalty comes with a body count and love blooms in the deadliest shadows, who's really playing who in this dangerous game of revenge, redemption, and unexpected passion? Through the dim alley lighting, Val froze at the sight of Gio Ricci's imposing figure. His tailored suit did nothing to soften the dangerous energy radiating from him. Her heart hammered against her ribs as he took a measured step toward her, his movement fluid like a predator. "Miss Carter." His voice was deep, smooth as aged whiskey. The sound of her name on his lips sent a chill down her spine. Or should I say, Judge Carter's daughter. Val's breath caught. Of course he knew who she was. His father had been sentenced by her dad years ago. She forced herself to stand taller, though her legs felt weak. "I should thank you for the warning." Gio moved closer, moonlight catching the sharp angles of his face. "But first, I need to know why." The brick wall pressed against her back. She hadn't even realized she was retreating. "I couldn't just let someone die," she said, proud that her voice remained steady. "Even you." A ghost of a smile touched his lips. "Even me? The big bad wolf of Chicago?" His eyes, dark and penetrating, studied her face. "Your father put mine away for life, yet here you are, protecting his son." "This isn't about our fathers." Val lifted her chin. "I made a choice, that's all." "Interesting choice for a waitress." He placed one hand against the wall beside her head, effectively caging her in. "Tell me exactly what you heard." Val recounted the conversation she'd overheard, watching his expression remain carefully neutral. "Two men, in the private dining room, they planned to use something colorless and odorless in your drink tomorrow. Said it would look like heart failure. And you just happened to be passing by at that exact moment." His tone carried a dangerous edge. "I was serving them." She met his gaze directly. "Check the staff schedule if you don't believe me." Gio studied her for a long moment, his proximity making it hard to think straight. The expensive scent of his cologne mixed with the cool night air. "You understand that by warning me, you've involved yourself in something very dangerous." Val thought of her father, lying in his hospital bed, of the mounting medical bills. "My life's already complicated enough. I don't want any part of your world." "Too late." His words were soft but final. "You made yourself part of it the moment you slipped me that note." He pulled back slightly, giving her room to breathe. "Those men will realize someone warned me when the deal falls through tomorrow. How long before they figure out it was you?" The reality of her situation hit hard. She hadn't thought that far ahead when she'd written the warning. She'd just acted on instinct. "I'll quit. Find another job." Even as she said it, she knew it wasn't that simple. The medical bills wouldn't wait. "They'll find you." Gio's voice was matter-of-fact. "And they'll make you talk before they kill you." Val's hands trembled. She clenched them into fists. "What do you suggest, then?" "Come with me now." He gestured to the waiting Bentley. "I'll ensure your protection." "Protection?" She almost laughed. "You mean captivity? Call it what you want." His eyes hardened. "But it's your only option for survival." Val glanced at the car, then back at him. "And my father? I can't just disappear. He needs me." Something flickered in Gio's expression. Understanding, perhaps even sympathy. "Your father will receive the best medical care money can buy. Consider it payment for saving my life." "You've looked into us already," she realized. "You know about his cancer." "I make it my business to know everything about people who interest me." He stepped back, creating space between them. "Make your choice, Valentina, but make it quickly." The alley suddenly felt colder. Val wrapped her arms around herself, mind racing. She thought of her father's face if she disappeared, the worry it would cause him. But if these men found her, if they hurt her, or worse, that would destroy him too. "I need to tell him something," she said finally. Let him know I'm safe. Gio nodded once. You can call him once we're secure. No details, just enough to ease his mind. Val took a shaky breath. And you'll guarantee his care? All of it? You have my word. He extended his hand. Do we have a deal? She stared at his offered hand, knowing this moment would change everything. His fingers were elegant but strong, hands that could both play piano and end lives. If the rumors were true. With one final prayer that she wasn't making a terrible mistake, Val placed her hand in his. His grip was warm and firm as he led her to the waiting car. The driver opened the door silently, and Val slid into the leather interior, the new car smell mixing with lingering traces of Gio's cologne. He settled beside her, his presence filling the space. As the car pulled away from Oro, Val watched her old life disappear into the darkness. She'd saved Gio Ricci's life tonight, but at what cost to her own? The impact knocked the breath from Val's lungs as Gio slammed her against the brick wall, his muscled forearm pressing against her throat. His cologne, expensive and masculine, filled her senses even as she struggled to breathe. Who sent you? His voice was deceptively soft, at odds with the lethal intent in his eyes. Victor, is that who you're working for? No one sent me, Val gasped, her fingers clutching at his arm. I swear, I just overheard them talking. His pressure eased slightly, allowing her to draw in a ragged breath. Convenient timing, isn't it? You just happened to be serving when they discussed killing me. Check the schedule. I was assigned to the private dining room. Val met his gaze directly, refusing to look away despite her racing heart. They were drinking bourbon, the expensive stuff. One had a scar across his jaw. The other wore a Patek Philippe watch. They said the poison would make it look like heart failure. Something flickered in Gio's expression, but his grip didn't loosen. Keep talking. They planned to slip it into your drink during tomorrow's meeting, said it would take hours to work, long enough that no one would connect it to them. Val swallowed hard against his forearm. I don't know anything else. I couldn't let someone die without warning them. Such nobility. His tone dripped sarcasm. And I'm supposed to believe you'd risk your life to warn someone like me, a man you don't even know? I made a choice. I'm starting to regret it. Gio studied her face for long moments before stepping back, though he maintained a blocking position. Marco, he called to one of his men, bring the car around. Wait, what? Val's eyes widened as the black Bentley pulled closer. I told you what I know. I'm not going anywhere with you. You don't have a choice? Gio's smile was cold. Until I verify your story, you'll remain under my protection. Protection? She tried to dodge past him, but he caught her arm in an iron grip. You mean captivity? Call it what you want. He opened the car door. After you. When she resisted, he simply lifted her bodily and placed her inside, sliding in after her. The leather seats were butter soft, the interior spotless. Under different circumstances, it would have been luxurious. Please, Val tried as they pulled away from the restaurant. My father needs me. He's sick. I'm all he has. You should have thought of that before involving yourself in my business. Gio pulled out his phone, dialing quickly. Joey, I need full background checks on all staff working at Oro tonight. Focus on the Carter girl and put eyes on the private dining room guests matching her description. He listened briefly. No, the deal's still on, just with additional security measures. Val stared out the window as Chicago's lights blurred past, her mind racing. They drove north along Lakeshore Drive, eventually turning onto smaller roads leading away from the city. After 20 minutes, they approached massive iron gates that opened silently at their approach. The mansion beyond was a fortress disguised as a luxury estate. Val noted security cameras disguised as architectural features and guards patrolling the immaculate grounds. The Bentley stopped at the main entrance, where more men in dark suits waited. Take her to the blue suite, Gio ordered as they exited the car. Maria will handle the security protocols. A stern-faced woman in a tailored pantsuit stepped forward. This way, Miss Carter. Val had no choice but to follow as Maria led her through the mansion's opulent interior. Despite her situation, she couldn't help noticing the museum-quality artwork. The gleaming marble floors, the crystal chandeliers. Everything spoke of old money and refined taste. They climbed to the third floor where Maria unlocked an ornate door. These will be your quarters until Mr. Ricci determines otherwise. The quarters were larger than Val's entire apartment. A sitting room with velvet furniture open to a bedroom featuring a massive 4-poster bed. The attached bathroom was all marble and gold fixtures. Floor-to-ceiling windows offered stunning views of Lake Michigan and reminded her how far she was from the ground. "Someone will bring you anything you need," Maria said, stepping back into the hallway. "For your own safety, please don't attempt to leave." The lock engaged with a decisive click, the sound echoing in Val's chest. She was trapped, albeit in the most elegant prison imaginable. Through the thick door, she could hear Gio's voice in the hallway, speaking with someone, presumably Joey, his lieutenant. They were discussing security arrangements for tomorrow's meeting, contingency plans, surveillance details. Val pressed her ear closer, straining to hear more, but their voices faded as they moved away. She explored her gilded cage, testing windows, sealed shut, checking closets, empty save for basic toiletries, searching for anything that might serve as a weapon or tool. The room had been thoroughly prepared for a reluctant guest. Exhausted, Val sank onto a velvet chaise lounge, her waitress uniform incongruous against the luxurious fabric. Less than an hour ago, she'd been serving drinks and worrying about tips. Now she was a prisoner in a Mafia boss's mansion, all because she'd tried to do the right thing. She thought of her father, alone in his hospital room. Would he panic when she didn't show up for their morning coffee? Would he try to call the police? The thought made her stomach clench. Involving law enforcement would only make this situation more dangerous. A soft knock at the door startled her. Maria entered carrying a tray with water, fruit, and sandwiches. "Mr. Ricci thought you might be hungry." Val didn't respond, turning away from the offered food. The door locked again as Maria left, leaving Val alone with her thoughts and fears about what tomorrow might bring. The first rays of dawn filtered through the floor-to-ceiling windows, finding Val already awake. She hadn't slept much, tossing and turning on the luxurious silk sheets that felt more like chains than comfort. Her waitress uniform was wrinkled from sleeping in it, a reminder of how quickly her life had changed. She immediately went to work, methodically testing every possible exit. The windows, despite their stunning lake view, were sealed tight. The phone on the antique desk required a 4-digit code she couldn't crack. Even the air vents were too small for escape. The suite itself was a study in opulent imprisonment. Persian rugs covered gleaming hardwood floors. Original paintings adorned walls that were likely reinforced with steel. Everything spoke of wealth and taste, making her captivity all the more surreal. Around 8, an elderly housekeeper arrived with breakfast, fresh croissants, fruit, and coffee on fine bone china. "I'm Isabella," Val offered warmly, hoping to make a connection. "But everyone calls me Val." The woman, small, gray-haired, with kind eyes, smiled slightly, but remained silent as she arranged the tray. "Please," Val tried again. "I need to leave. My father is sick. He'll worry when I don't show up." The housekeeper's eyes darted nervously to the camera in the corner before shaking her head. She hurried out, the lock clicking firmly behind her. Val picked at the food, her appetite gone. She paced the suite, noting cameras in every room except the bathroom. Even there, she suspected hidden surveillance. The morning crawled by until sharp knocks interrupted her thoughts. 2 guards escorted her through the mansion's maze-like corridors. The decor grew increasingly masculine until they reached massive double doors. Inside, Gio's study was all dark wood, leather, and carefully curated power. He stood behind an imposing desk, watching her with cold calculation. "Sit!" Val perched on the edge of a leather chair, spine straight, refusing to show fear. "You've been quite the mystery, Isabella Valentine." His voice was soft, dangerous. Or should I say, Valentina Carter. Her sharp intake of breath confirmed his words. She'd been careful to use her mother's maiden name at work to hide her connection to her father. But Gio's resources had stripped away that protection overnight. "Daughter of federal judge Richard Carter," he continued, circling the desk. "The man who sentenced my father to life without parole 15 years ago. Quite the coincidence, wouldn't you say?" "It's not what you think," Val managed, her throat dry. "No?" He leaned against the desk, looming over her. "Let's examine the facts. You have intimate knowledge of a confidential $100 million deal. You have personal motivation for revenge against my family, and you chose to approach me directly instead of going to the authorities." His eyes narrowed. "Who are you working with?" "No one." Val stood, frustration overriding caution. "I overheard those men plotting to poison you. I could have walked away, let them kill you. Instead, I warned you." Perhaps that's exactly what someone wanted, to gain my trust through a staged rescue. Their heated exchange was interrupted by Joey entering with security reports. As they conferred in low voices, Val caught the chilling instruction. If she tries to leave before we know who she's working for, make her disappear. Back in her suite, Val watched darkness creep across the manicured grounds. Security patrols moved with military precision. Beyond the walls, Chicago's lights twinkled mockingly. The weight of her situation pressed down like a physical thing. She had to contact her father somehow. He'd be frantic by now. The room phone still sat on the desk, taunting her. After hours of observation, she'd seen the housekeeper enter a code to call the kitchen. Worth a try. The numbers beeped as she pressed them. To her surprise, a dial tone hummed. Her father's familiar number connected on the second ring. Hello? His voice was worried, strained. Val forced cheerfulness she didn't feel. Hi, Dad. Sorry, I didn't call earlier. Remember my friend Anna from college? I ran into her last night after work. She's going through a tough divorce and really needed support, so I'm staying with her for a few days. She hoped he'd catch the reference. Anna had been in an abusive marriage years ago. It was the best warning she could manage. Are you sure that's wise? His judge's instincts must have caught something in her tone. I'm fine, really. Anna's place is beautiful, right on the lake. The security is amazing. She emphasized the word slightly. I just need to help her through this. You know how trapped someone can feel in a bad situation. Valentina! There was fear in his voice now. Don't worry about me, okay? Take your medicine, rest, and I'll call again soon. She paused. I love you, Dad, no matter what happens. She hung up before emotion could betray her further, unaware that in his private quarters, Gio had listened to every word. He sat in shadows, a glass of whiskey untouched beside him, replaying her careful phrases in his mind as he pondered the puzzle she presented. The pounding on Val's door jolted her awake. Sunlight barely filtered through the windows when a female security guard marched in, arms laden with designer clothing. Mr. Ricci wants you presentable, the guard stated, laying out an array of expensive pieces on the bed. You're accompanying him to a meeting today. Val's stomach churned at the implications. The guard stood watch as she sorted through the clothing, all perfectly sized, making her wonder when they'd gathered her measurements. Down in Gio's study, tension crackled through the air as Luca Ricci paced before his brother's desk. Where Gio radiated controlled danger, his younger brother carried a more approachable energy, though no less lethal. They found Marco floating in the river this morning, Luca reported, running a hand through his dark hair. Rossi's people worked him over before putting a bullet in his head. Our only inside source, gone. Gio's jaw tightened, the only visible sign of his reaction. What did they get from him? Hard to tell, but without Marco, we're flying blind into this deal. Luca stopped pacing, fixing his brother with a worried look. We don't know if the girl's warning is legitimate or part of Rossi's play. Then we'll use her to find out. Gio stood, decision made. She's coming to the deal as my date. If she's telling the truth, Rossi's men will show their hand. If she's working with them, his smile held no warmth. She'll be caught in her own trap. When Val was brought to the study, she found both brothers waiting. The younger one's presence surprised her. She recognized Luca Ricci from news coverage of the family's legitimate business ventures. You'll be accompanying me to today's meeting, Gio informed her, his tone brooking no argument. As my date. Absolutely not, Val protested. I warned you out of basic human decency not to get dragged deeper into whatever dangerous game you're playing. This isn't a request. Gio moved closer, invading her space. The deal happens at noon at the Lakeshore Yacht Club. Your life is now tied to mine. If someone tries to poison me, you'll be drinking from the same bottle. Val's mind raced. And if I refuse? That's not an option you want to explore. His voice softened dangerously. Consider this your chance to prove you're telling the truth. For the next hour, they drilled her on protocol. Luca handled most of the instruction, explaining who would be present and how she should behave. Val absorbed the details, noting how Gio interrupted occasionally to correct or clarify points, always protective of his younger brother, even in this. Victor Rossi will be there with his inner circle, Luca explained. You'll need to remember their names, their positions. Any slip could reveal you're not really part of our world. Val studied the photos they provided, committing faces to memory. She noticed how Luca deferred to his brother's authority while still maintaining his own presence. There was clear affection between them, layered with complexity. Gio the commanding force, Luca the diplomatic bridge. A stylist arrived to transform Val into someone worthy of being on Giovanni Ricci's arm. The designer dress they selected was elegant but strategic, high-necked, long-sleeved, ensuring she couldn't slip away anything that might be used as a weapon. The deep blue fabric highlighted her eyes while maintaining the conservative appearance expected of a mafia boss's companion. As final preparations were made, Val observed the brothers' interaction more closely. Gio checked every detail of their security personally, while Luca coordinated with their team through encrypted channels. They moved with the synchronization of long practice, two parts of a deadly whole. "The car's ready," Luca announced, checking his phone. "Our people are in position around the yacht club." Gio nodded, then turned to Val. His hand settled possessively on her waist as he guided her toward the door. The warmth of his touch sparked an unwanted response, even as his breath ghosted across her ear with a chilling reminder. "Remember," he whispered, "if I die today, you won't live long enough to celebrate." Val forced a smile, playing the role of willing companion as they walked to the waiting Bentley. Her mind cataloged every detail: the number of guards, the layout of the driveway, the distance to the gates. If an opportunity for escape presented itself, she needed to be ready. Luca held the car door, his expression sympathetic but unyielding. As Val slid into the leather interior, Gio following close behind, she felt the weight of her situation pressing down. She was walking into a potential war zone with a man who wouldn't hesitate to kill her if she made one wrong move. The Bentley pulled away from the mansion, part of a 3-car convoy. Val sat rigidly beside Gio, her mind racing through scenarios. Would Rossi's men really try to poison one of Chicago's most powerful crime bosses? And if they did, how could she avoid becoming collateral damage in a war she never meant to join? The gleaming white boats of Lakeshore Yacht Club bobbed gently in the midday sun. The Bentley glided to a stop at the private dock entrance, where men in expensive suits tried to look casual while scanning for threats. Val's heart hammered as Gio's driver opened their door. Gio emerged first, his movements fluid and controlled. He extended his hand to Val, helping her from the car with practiced grace. His arm snaked around her waist immediately, a gesture that appeared romantic but felt like a steel band keeping her in place. "Victor!" Gio's voice carried across the dock as they approached the waiting group. "Perfect day for a meeting on the water!" Victor Rossi stood with his back to the lake, surrounded by his own security detail. His tailored suit probably cost more than Val's yearly salary, but something about him felt cheaper than Gio, like he was trying too hard to project power. "Giovanni," Rossi's smile didn't reach his eyes. "And who is this lovely addition?" "Valentina." Gio's hand tightened fractionally on her waist. "She insisted on enjoying the lake view today." Val forced herself to smile, but her attention was already scanning the faces around them. There, a man toward the back of Rossi's group matched the description of one she'd overheard at Oro. Same height, same close-cropped dark hair, same scar along his jaw. They boarded Rossi's yacht, a floating palace of gleaming wood and chrome. Val noted the positioning as everyone settled into the main salon, Gio and his men on one side, Rossi's group on the other, with both leaders facing each other across a glass table. "Drinks before business," Rossi suggested, gesturing to a uniformed server. "Of course." Gio's tone was pleasant, but Val felt the tension in his body where they sat together on the leather sofa. Val watched the server carefully while pretending to admire the yacht's interior. The man she'd identified shifted slightly, moving closer to where the drinks were being prepared. Her years of waitressing had taught her to track the subtle choreography of service staff. The server began distributing glasses of amber liquid. Val saw the scarred man make a slight movement as the tray passed, so quick she might have missed it if she hadn't been looking for it. The glasses continued toward them. Val didn't hesitate. As the server approached their side of the salon, she rose suddenly, appearing to lose her balance. Her hand caught the edge of the tray, sending glasses crashing to the floor. Whiskey splashed across the expensive carpet. "I'm so sorry." She pressed a hand to her mouth in fake embarrassment. "The boat's movement, I'm not used to it." Gio's hand steadied her as she sat back down. His finger squeezed once, letting her know he understood what she'd done. Across the salon, Rossi's face tightened with barely controlled rage. "No harm done." Rossi's voice was smooth, but his eyes were cold. "Fresh drinks for everyone." The rest of the meeting proceeded like a chess match played with words. Gio and Rossi discussed territory boundaries, profit shares, and distribution rights, each statement layered with hidden meanings and veiled threats. "Perhaps we should postpone finalizing the details," Gio suggested eventually. "Give everyone time to consider the full implications of our agreement." 3 days, Rossi agreed. "Same time, different venue of my choosing." They departed the yacht with the same forced courtesy that had marked their arrival. Val felt Rossi's eyes burning into her back as Gio led her to the waiting Bentley. The car pulled away from the yacht club in tense silence. Finally, Gio spoke. You were telling the truth. Yes. Val met his gaze steadily. I told you I was. You have good instincts, quick thinking with the drinks. Does this mean I can go home now? No. Gio's expression hardened. You're the only one who can identify Rossi's poisoner. That makes you valuable and a target. So I'm still your prisoner? Let's call it protective custody. His smile held no warmth. You'll be moved to more comfortable quarters. For your safety, of course. When they returned to the mansion, Val was escorted to a new suite adjacent to Gio's personal rooms. The space was even more luxurious than her previous accommodations, with a private balcony overlooking manicured gardens. The connecting door to Gio's rooms was the only reminder that this was still a cage, albeit a gilded one. That night, unable to sleep, Val explored her new prison. The moonlight streaming through floor-to-ceiling windows revealed elegant furnishings and artwork that probably cost more than her father's medical bills. She approached the connecting door, expecting it to be locked. It opened silently at her touch. Soft piano music drifted through the gap. Val peered into Gio's dimly lit sitting room. He sat at a grand piano, his usual rigid control transformed by the music flowing from his fingers. The haunting melody spoke of loss and longing, his expression open in a way she'd never seen before. For a moment, she glimpsed something beyond the ruthless crime boss, a man carrying burdens she couldn't begin to understand. The vulnerability in his face made her chest tight with unwanted empathy. Val backed away quietly, closing the door without a sound. She returned to her bed, troubled by what she'd witnessed. It was easier when she could think of him as simply a monster. This glimpse of his humanity complicated everything. Val woke to sunlight streaming through floor-to-ceiling windows. A note rested on the bedside table, the heavy cream paper bearing elegant handwriting. Your presence is required today. The closet has been stocked appropriately. Be ready by 9 a.m. G. Opening the walk-in closet, she found racks of designer clothing in exactly her size. Everything from casual wear to evening gowns hung in perfectly organized sections. The message was clear. She was to play her part. She chose a navy silk blouse and tailored pants, then headed downstairs where Gio waited in the foyer. His dark suit emphasized his broad shoulders as he studied something on his phone. You clean up well, he said without looking up. We have appointments to keep. The Bentley carried them into the city. Their first stop was Lux, an exclusive nightclub that drew Chicago's elite. Even empty in the morning light, the space radiated luxury with its crystal chandeliers and leather booths. This is Giovanni's girlfriend. Gio introduced her to his manager, a sharp-eyed woman named Diana. Val noticed how Diana's initial suspicions softened when Gio placed his hand possessively at the small of Val's back. The import company occupied several floors of a downtown high-rise. Val observed the legitimate shipping operation in front, noting the careful way certain containers were processed differently. Gio's men treated him with a mixture of respect and fear as he reviewed operations. By lunch, they reached Bella Vita, one of Gio's upscale Italian restaurants. An elderly woman with silver hair rushed to greet them at the door. Giovanni! She cupped his face in her hands. Too long since you visited, you bad boy. To Val's surprise, Gio's stern expression melted as he bent to kiss the woman's cheek. Sophia, you know I can't stay away from your cooking. Sophia turned twinkling eyes to Val. And who is this beautiful girl? This is Valentina, Gio said, his hand warm on Val's waist. The tenderness in his voice when speaking to Sophia revealed a different side of him. They were led to a private booth where Sophia fussed over them, bringing dish after dish of homemade pasta and insisting they eat more. Val watched Gio relax fractionally in the woman's presence, accepting her motherly attention with unusual patience. After lunch, they returned to the mansion. Gio left Val with his security team while he attended a private meeting. She was walking down a quiet hallway when heavy footsteps approached from behind. Hey, spy! Carlo, one of Gio's men, blocked her path, his face twisted with hatred. I know what you really are. Val backed away, but he grabbed her arm roughly. You're working for Rossi, aren't you? Planning to kill the boss? Let go of me! Val tried breaking his grip, using the self-defense moves she'd learned years ago. Carlo slammed her against the wall, knocking the wind from her lungs. She fought back, landing a solid kick to his knee, but he was too strong. His fist connected with her face, splitting her lip. Suddenly, Carlo was ripped away. Gio stood there, his expression terrifying in its stillness. Without a word, he attacked Carlo with precise, brutal efficiency. Each punch was calculated to cause maximum pain without killing. When Carlo lay bloody on the marble floor, Gio addressed the gathered household staff and security who had been drawn by the commotion. Let this be clear. She is under my protection. Anyone who touches her will suffer far worse than this. Later that evening, Gio appeared at Val's door carrying a first aid kit. She sat stiffly as he cleaned her split lip with gentle fingers that contrasted sharply with the violence she'd witnessed earlier. "Why did you help me?" she asked. "I'm just your prisoner." Gio's dark eyes met hers with unexpected intensity. "You saved my life. Now you're under my protection." His thumb brushed softly across her uninjured cheek. "No one hurts what belongs to me." Val shivered at the possessiveness in his voice, unable to look away from his gaze. The growing heat in his eyes revealed an obsession that both thrilled and terrified her. She was beginning to realize that her captivity had evolved into something far more dangerous and potentially addictive. As he carefully applied antiseptic to her lip, Val found herself studying his face. The controlled violence she'd witnessed earlier had transformed into this gentle touch. The contrast was dizzying. His fingers lingered longer than necessary, trailing fire across her skin. The air between them grew thick with tension. Val's heart pounded as Gio leaned incrementally closer, his breath warming her cheek. She should pull away, should remember who he was and what he'd done. Instead, she remained frozen, caught between fear and a desperate curiosity about what his lips would feel like against hers. Gio's phone buzzed, shattering the moment. He withdrew slowly, his eyes still dark with unspoken promises. "Get some rest," he said, his voice rough. "Tomorrow will be another long day." Val watched him leave, her split lips stinging, and her thoughts in chaos. The man was a study in contradictions, capable of brutal violence one moment and tender care the next. She touched, her lip where his fingers had been, trying to understand the complicated emotions he stirred in her. Her reflection in the mirror showed a woman she barely recognized. Designer clothes, perfectly styled hair, and now a split lip that had been tended by a mafia boss. She was changing, adapting to this strange new world she'd been thrust into. The question was whether she could maintain her sense of self in the process. Val stood at the window of her suite, watching the sun rise over Chicago's skyline. 2 days of playing Gio's girlfriend had left her exhausted from maintaining the facade. Her fingers traced the keypad by her door, memorizing the patterns the security guards used, searching for any weakness in the mansion's defenses. The morning passed in tense silence. In Gio's office, she could hear his raised voice arguing with Luca through the thick wooden door. "It's suicide to go through with this deal," Luca's voice carried clearly. "We don't back down," Gio responded firmly. "That's exactly what Rossi wants." That evening, Val found herself in a sleek black dress, entering Inferno on Gio's arm. The exclusive nightclub pulsed with energy, crystal chandeliers casting fractured light across the dance floor. Beautiful people filled private booths, while security personnel maintained a watchful presence. Gio guided her through the crowd with a possessive hand at her waist. "Smile," he murmured in her ear. "Everyone's watching." He wasn't wrong. All eyes followed their progress to the VIP section, where Gio's inner circle waited. Joey Falcone raised his glass in greeting, while other lieutenants nodded respectfully. "The girlfriend we've heard so much about," one of them commented, eyeing Val appreciatively until Gio's sharp look made him drop his gaze. Val settled into the role she'd been practicing, laughing at their jokes and touching Gio's arm with calculated familiarity. But each casual touch sent unwanted sparks through her body. His practiced charm and easy confidence affected her more than she wanted to admit. She watched him command the room effortlessly. When he spoke, everyone listened. When he moved, people parted before him. There was something magnetic about his authority that drew her despite herself. Luca appeared suddenly at their booth, his expression tight. "We've got problems outside. Suspicious vehicles circling the block." Before Gio could respond, the first gunshots rang out. The club erupted in chaos as Rossi's men stormed in through multiple entrances. Val ducked behind an overturned table as Gio's security engaged the attackers. Through the mayhem, she spotted movement in the VIP balcony overhead, a gunman taking aim at Luca, who was focused on the threats in front of him. "Luca, above you!" Val screamed without thinking. He dropped and rolled as bullets sprayed where he'd been standing. Across the room, Gio's eyes met hers for a split second, registering her warning that had saved his brother. The firefight seemed to last forever, but was probably only minutes. Gio's men eventually drove back the attackers, leaving broken glass and bullet holes in their wake. They swept the club for any remaining threats while Joey coordinated with Chicago PD outside. Hours later, Val sat in the mansion's library, still in her club dress, adrenaline keeping her wide awake. She heard Gio's measured footsteps before he appeared in the doorway. "Why did you warn him?" he demanded without preamble. You could have let Luca die. The chaos would have given you a chance to run. Val stood, her nerves frayed. Is that what you think of me? That I'd let someone die to save myself? Isn't that what anyone would do in your position? He moved closer, his presence filling the space between them. You're my prisoner, aren't you? Isn't that what you keep reminding me? I couldn't let him die, Val said, her voice breaking. Whatever you think of me, whatever the situation is between us, I'm not that person. I couldn't live with myself if I'd let that happen. Something shifted in Gio's expression. The calculated assessment in his eyes softened into something more dangerous. Understanding, perhaps even trust. He stepped closer, close enough that she could smell his cologne mixed with gunpowder from the firefight. You continue to surprise me, Valentina. Her breath caught as he raised his hand to her face, his thumb brushing her cheek. The tension between them crackled like electricity. Val knew she should step back, maintain the distance between captor and captive. Instead, she found herself swaying slightly toward him. Gio's eyes darkened as he noticed her movement. His hand slid to the back of her neck, gentle but insistent. Val's heart thundered in her chest as he bent toward her, his breath warming her lips. A sharp alarm pierced the air, making them both jump. Red emergency lights began flashing through the mansion's windows. Sir! A security guard burst into the library. We have a perimeter breach on the east side of the estate. The intimate moment shattered. Gio's expression hardened as he shifted seamlessly back into the role of Mafia boss. But when he looked at Val again, something lingered in his gaze, a promise of unfinished business between them. Get to your room and lock the door, he ordered. Don't open it for anyone but me or Luca. Val watched him stride away, barking orders into his phone. Her lips still tingled from his nearness, and her emotions churned in confusion. She was starting to fear that the greatest threat to her wasn't Gio's violence, or even his imprisonment. It was the way he made her feel when he looked at her like that. She touched her cheek where his hand had been, remembering the gentleness that seemed at odds with everything she knew about him. The alarm continued to wail through the mansion as she made her way back to her suite, her mind racing with questions about the perimeter breach and her own conflicted feelings. The alarm continued to wail as heavy footsteps thundered through the mansion's corridors. 2 security guards burst into Val's room, their weapons drawn. Mr. Ricci wants you moved immediately, one ordered, already ushering her toward the door. Val barely had time to process what was happening before Gio appeared, his face tight with controlled fury. He grabbed her arm, pulling her alongside him as they descended a hidden staircase she hadn't known existed. What's going on? She asked, struggling to keep up with his long strides. Someone breached the outer wall and disabled 2 security cameras. They're asking for you by name. His grip tightened. Care to explain that? Before Val could respond, they reached a steel door with a biometric lock. Gio pressed his palm to the scanner, and the door slid open to reveal a fortified room filled with monitors showing security feeds from around the estate. Stay here, he commanded, pushing her inside. Don't move. Val watched the screens as guards swept the grounds with tactical precision. Her heart nearly stopped when she saw a familiar figure being detained near the east gate. Bella? She whispered in disbelief. On the monitor, her best friend stood calmly as guards searched her, producing what looked like official credentials. Val's mind raced. What was Bella doing here? How did she even know where to find her? Minutes later, Gio's voice crackled through the room's intercom. Bring her to my study. Security escorted Val upstairs, where she found Bella seated across from Gio's desk. But instead of her friend's usual casual attire, Bella wore a crisp blazer and carried herself with unfamiliar authority. Val, Bella said softly, standing to face her. I'm so sorry it's come to this. She reached into her jacket and withdrew a badge. I'm Special Agent Isabella Moretti, FBI. The world tilted beneath Val's feet. What? Please, sit down, Bella gestured to a chair. There's a lot we need to discuss. Val remained standing, her body trembling. How long? The entire time, Bella admitted. Our friendship. It wasn't entirely genuine. The FBI has been investigating the Ricci organization for years. When you got the job at Oro, it presented an opportunity. An opportunity? Val's voice cracked. I was an opportunity. Your position gave you access to high-level meetings, conversations, information you shared with me about the restaurant's clientele, especially regarding the Ricci family visits. Horror dawned as Val remembered all their lunch dates, the casual conversations about her work. You were using me. There's more, Bella continued, glancing at Gio's stone-faced expression. Your father's experimental treatments, they're being covered by the FBI. It was part of an unofficial arrangement. My access to your insights about Oro's customers was valuable enough to justify the expense. Val's knees buckled. She grabbed the back of a chair to steady herself. My father's treatments were because I was unknowingly informing on dangerous criminals. Your warning about the poisoning wasn't part of our operation, Bella added quickly. But we've been tracking your movements since you started at Oro. When you disappeared, I had to act. Gio, who had been unnaturally still throughout this revelation, finally moved. His chair scraped back as he stood, radiating lethal energy. Get her out, he ordered his men, indicating Bella. If you ever step foot on my property again, badge or not, you won't leave alive. As guards escorted Bella away, she called out, Val, I'm sorry, I was trying to protect you. The door closed behind her, leaving Val alone with Gio's murderous silence. The wine cellar, he said finally, his voice arctic. Lock her in until after tomorrow's deal, then we'll discuss her payment for this betrayal. Gio, please, Val protested as guards grabbed her arms. I didn't know, I would never take her. The wine cellar was deep beneath the mansion, its stone walls lined with thousands of bottles. A heavy door clanged shut behind her, leaving Val in dim lighting and cool air that didn't provide enough oxygen for her panicked breathing. She slid down against a wall, harsh sobs racking her body. Everything she thought she knew had been a lie. Her best friend had manipulated her for months. Her father's life-saving treatments were payment for her unwitting cooperation. And Gio, the tentative trust they'd built, the moment they'd almost shared in the library, all of it shattered by this revelation. He would never believe she hadn't been part of the FBI's plan. As her tears gradually subsided, Val's waitress instincts, the careful attention to detail that had kept her alive so far, began to resurface. She looked around the cellar with new focus, noting the layout, the shelving, the stone walls. Something caught her eye, an irregularity in the masonry near the floor. The stones didn't quite align, creating a subtle pattern that seemed out of place in the otherwise precise construction. Val crawled closer, running her fingers along the seam. Was it possible? In a house this old, with its hidden staircases and panic rooms, could there be a secret passage from the wine cellar? She pressed against different stones, searching for a mechanism. If she could find a way out before tomorrow's deal, before Gio's retribution. The dim light flickered, casting shadows that danced across the bottles. Somewhere above, she heard muffled footsteps crossing the floor. Val worked faster, more desperately. She'd survived her father's enemies, Rossi's assassins, and Gio's suspicion. She wouldn't let Bella's betrayal be what finally destroyed her. The stone scraped against Val's fingers as she methodically pressed each irregular block, testing for any give. Hours had passed in the dim cellar, the only sound her careful movements and steady breathing. Her persistence finally paid off when a stone shifted beneath her palm with a grinding click. The wall shuddered, ancient mechanisms groaning to life. A section of stonework swung inward, revealing a narrow passage barely wide enough for one person. Stale air rushed out, carrying decades of dust and secrets. Prohibition Tunnel, Val whispered to herself, remembering Chicago's history of bootlegging operations. She hesitated only briefly before slipping inside, using her phone's flashlight to illuminate the cramped space. The passage twisted through the mansion's foundations, forcing Val to navigate carefully in the confined space. Cobwebs clung to her hair and clothes as she pressed forward, counting her steps to track distance. After what felt like an eternity, she reached another mechanism, this one better maintained. With careful manipulation, the panel slid aside, revealing the back of a bookcase. Val eased it open just enough to peer through. Her breath caught. She was in Gio's private office, the same room where he'd first revealed he knew her true identity. Common sense screamed at her to run, but something deeper held her back. This might be her only chance to understand the man who held her captive. Moving silently, Val approached his massive desk, noting security cameras were absent in this personal space. The top drawer was locked, but years of watching her father's legal secretary taught Val a few tricks. She withdrew a hairpin, manipulating it until the lock surrendered with a soft click. What she found inside stole her breath. Photographs spilled out, dozens of them showing women and children being led to safety by shadowy figures. Financial records detailed massive payments to rehabilitation centers and witness protection programs. A map of Chicago was marked with red X's over locations Val recognized as known trafficking hotspots. "Oh my God," she whispered, fingers trembling as she sifted through more documents. Reports outlined systematic takedowns of trafficking operations, many within the Ricci organization itself. Lieutenant after lieutenant eliminated, their victims rescued and relocated. The door's hinges creaked. Val's head snapped up to find Gio filling the doorway, his expression thunderous. "How did you—" His eyes fell to the scattered documents, and something dangerous flashed across his face. "You're shutting them down," Val said quickly, before he could speak. "The trafficking rings. You're not just eliminating competition, you're rescuing people." "Put those down." His voice was lethal. Instead, Val held up a photograph. "These women! You saved them! Why?" The silence stretched taut between them until something in Gio shattered. He crossed to a cabinet, withdrew a bottle of scotch, and poured 2 generous measures. "Francesca," he said finally, handing Val a glass. "My sister. She was 16 when they took her. I was barely older myself, still learning the business from my father." His knuckles whitened around his glass. "By the time I had enough power to really look for her, the trail was cold. So you started hunting other traffickers," Val said softly, taking apart their networks piece by piece. "Every rescued victim is questioned about Francesca. Every operation I dismantle brings me closer to finding her." He drained his glass. "The deal tomorrow, the 100 million, it's not for territory or product. It's for information about where she might be." Val set down her untouched scotch. "Does anyone else know?" "Only Luca. The rest think I'm consolidating power by eliminating rivals. It's safer that way." "Like your father would have done." Gio's laugh was bitter. "My father built this empire on human suffering. I'm using it to save lives instead." He studied her face. "Now you know my secret. What's yours?" Val sank into a chair, suddenly exhausted. "I took the job at Oro because we were drowning in medical bills. Dad's treatments." She swallowed hard. "I never knew Bella was FBI. Never knew she was using our friendship to gather intelligence. Everything I told her, I thought I was just talking to my best friend about my day. And the warning about the poison was genuine. I couldn't let someone die, even..." She met his gaze. "Even someone I thought was a monster." Something shifted in Gio's expression as he moved closer. "And now? Now I don't know what to think." Val stood, finding herself mere inches from him. "You're not what I expected." "Neither are you." His hand rose to cup her cheek, thumb brushing her lower lip. "You should have run when you found that passage." "Maybe I'm tired of running." The first rays of dawn filtered through the windows as Gio closed the remaining distance between them. His lips met hers with surprising gentleness that quickly blazed into something more desperate. Val's fingers tangled in his hair as she pressed closer, all her confusion and attraction crystallizing into this moment. When they finally broke apart, both breathing heavily, the sun had fully risen. Val could feel Gio's heart thundering beneath her palm where it rested on his chest. "The deal is in 4 hours, he murmured against her hair. "Then we better figure out how to handle it together." The morning sun filtered through Gio's bedroom windows, casting a warm glow across the tangled sheets. Val stirred first, her body pleasantly sore from the night's passionate revelations. Beside her, Gio slept with one protective arm draped across her waist, his usually stern features softened in slumber. Reality crashed back as her eyes found the clock. In less than 4 hours, they'd face Rossi and whatever deadly game he had planned. Val traced her fingers along Gio's jawline, memorizing this peaceful moment before their world erupted into chaos. Gio's eyes opened, instantly alert. "Having second thoughts?" His voice was rough with sleep, but his gaze was sharp, searching her face for any sign of regret. "About us?" "No." Val sat up, clutching the silk sheets. "About walking into a meeting with a man who already tried to poison you?" "Absolutely." Gio pulled her back down, rolling to pin her beneath him. "I won't let anything happen to you." His kiss was possessive, claiming before he reluctantly released her. "We need to get ready." They dressed efficiently, Val in another designer outfit from her closet, while Gio donned one of his impeccable suits. The intimate domesticity of preparing together felt surreal against the backdrop of impending danger. Over breakfast in Gio's private dining room, they formulated their plan. "Bella will expect me to try escaping," Val said, pushing eggs around her plate. "We can use that." "It's risky," Gio warned, but his eyes gleamed with appreciation for her strategic thinking. "If they realize you're feeding them false information..." "I worked 6 months at Oro without anyone suspecting I was Judge Carter's daughter. I can handle this." Before Gio could respond, the dining room door burst open. Luca rushed in, tablet in hand, his face pale. "Gio, they have Joey." Val's fork clattered against her plate as Gio snatched the tablet. A video played, showing Joey bound to a chair in what appeared to be a concrete room. Rossi's voice came through clearly. "Consider this insurance for our meeting, Ricci. You're lieutenant for my 100 million. Something niggled at Val's trained observer's instincts as she watched Joey's reactions. His struggles seemed choreographed, like a performance rather than genuine fear. But before she could analyze it further, Gio was already barking orders into his phone, mobilizing his security teams. "This changes nothing," Val insisted, gripping Gio's arm. "Let me make the call to Bella. While the FBI wastes time watching the wrong location, we handle Rossi." Gio studied her for a long moment before nodding. "Make the call. Luca, get everyone ready. We move in 90 minutes. Val's hands shook slightly as she dialed Bella's number, but her voice was steady. She spun a convincing tale of slipping out during a guard change, using details from her actual exploration of the mansion to make it believable. Bella's relief sounded genuine as Val fed her false coordinates for a meeting at an abandoned factory across town. "Got it," Bella said. "Stay safe, Val. We'll handle this." After hanging up, Val turned to find Gio watching her intently. "I'm coming with you to the warehouse." "Absolutely not." "I'm the only one who can identify the poisoner," Val argued. "And after last night, do you really think I'll let you face this alone?" Their standoff lasted several tense seconds before Gio relented with a curse. "You stay in the car unless I say otherwise. And you wear a vest." An hour later, they were pulling up to the waterfront warehouse in Gio's Bentley. Luca followed in a black SUV with two of Gio's most trusted men. The morning fog rolling off Lake Michigan shrouded Rossi's vehicles already parked and waiting. Val's pulse raced as Gio reached for her hand. His fingers pressed something small and metal into her palm, a tracking device no larger than a button. "If anything goes wrong," he murmured, "activate it. My security team will be monitoring." "Nothing will go wrong," Val insisted, though her throat felt tight. "We've planned for everything." Gio's other hand came up to cup her cheek, his thumb brushing across her lower lip. The tenderness in his touch contrasted sharply with the deadly situation they were about to enter. "Be careful, Cara," he whispered, the Italian endearment falling naturally from his lips. "I've just found you. I don't intend to lose you now." The intensity in his dark eyes made Val's breath catch. This man who had started as her captor revealed himself as a secret vigilante and now looked at her like she was something precious he couldn't bear to lose. She leaned in, pressing a fierce kiss to his lips, pouring all her complicated emotions into the contact. "Together," she whispered against his mouth. "Whatever happens in there, we face it together." Gio's fingers tightened briefly around hers before he released her hand. His expression shifted, the tender lover disappearing behind the mask of the ruthless Mafia boss. But Val could still see the warmth in his eyes when he looked at her, a secret shared between them as they prepared to step into whatever trap awaited inside the warehouse. The warehouse air hung thick with tension as Val followed Gio and Luca inside. Their footsteps echoed off concrete walls, mixing with the distant sound of Lake Michigan's waves. Rossi stood flanked by his men, a smug smile playing across his face. Behind him, Joey slumped in a metal chair, his face bruised and shirt stained with blood. As promised, Rossi gestured toward Joey. "A show of good faith." Val studied Joey carefully. Despite his apparent injuries, something felt off about his posture, too calculated in its weakness. Her years of observing patrons at Oro had taught her to read body language like a book. A woman stepped forward from the shadows, her Louboutins clicking against the floor. "Shall we proceed with business?" Her accent was cultured, impossible to place. "I am Madame Vega. Time is precious, and I have other appointments today." Val suppressed a shiver at Vega's clinical demeanor. The woman's perfectly tailored suit and elegant appearance couldn't mask the coldness in her eyes, like a shark evaluating prey. "The information first," Gio demanded, his voice hard. "Then the money." Vega produced a tablet, her manicured fingers sliding across the screen. "Of course. Our facilities provide the highest standard of specialized care for merchandise that has become compromised." She turned the tablet toward them, displaying photos of what looked like upscale medical clinics. "When products are damaged beyond repair for their primary purpose, we ensure they remain profitable through alternative arrangements." Val's stomach turned as she decoded the euphemisms. These weren't medical facilities, they were holding pens for trafficked victims too broken to be sold for sex. She glanced at Gio, seeing the muscle in his jaw twitch. This was about finding his sister Francesca. Movement caught her eye. Joey's hands, though bound, were making subtle gestures toward one of Rossi's men, a pattern, a signal. Before she could alert Gio, the warehouse doors exploded inward. FBI, nobody move! Agents in tactical gear poured in, Bella at the forefront with her weapon raised. Val, get down! The warehouse erupted into chaos. Gunfire crackled as Rossi's men opened fire. Joey suddenly sprang up from his chair, restraints falling away as he lunged for Vega's tablet and the briefcase containing Gio's payment. Gio, Val shouted. Joey's with them, it's a setup! But her warning was drowned out by the firefight. She lost sight of Gio in the mayhem, spotting Luca pinned down behind a stack of crates. She fought her way toward him, years of self-defense training kicking in as she ducked and weaved through the crossfire. Joey was heading for a side exit, tablet and briefcase in hand. Val changed direction, pursuing him. She couldn't let him escape with both the money and their only lead to finding Francesca. The impact hit her like a sledgehammer. Val stumbled, her hand coming away from her side, wet with blood. One of Rossi's men had caught her with a clean shot. The concrete floor rushed up to meet her as her legs gave way. Strong arms caught her before she hit the ground. Gio's face swam into focus above her, his expression twisted with rage and fear. Stay with me, Kara, stay with me! Joey, she gasped, fighting to get the words out as blood soaked her shirt. He has everything. The tablet, the money. He planned this. With them. Gio's eyes darted between her bleeding form and the exit Joey had taken. Val could see the agony of indecision on his face as FBI agents closed in on their position. Go, she whispered, pushing weakly at his chest. Find your sister. I'll be okay. His hand cupped her cheek, thumb brushing away tears she hadn't realized were falling. I will come back for you, he promised fiercely. Wait for me. Then he was gone, disappearing into the chaos as federal agents swarmed around her. Bella's face replaced Gio's, calling desperately for a medic. Val's vision darkened around the edges as the pain overwhelmed her. She drifted in and out of consciousness for what felt like days. When she finally fully awakened, the warehouse's concrete walls had been replaced by sterile hospital white. A handcuff secured her right wrist to the bed rail, and monitors beeped steadily beside her. You're lucky to be alive, Bella said from the chair next to her bed. The bullet missed anything vital, but you lost a lot of blood. Val turned her head away, unable to look at the woman she'd thought was her friend. He left you there, Val, Bella pressed, bleeding out on that warehouse floor. He chose revenge over you. Help us bring him down. Tell us what you know about his operations. Get out! Val's voice was hoarse but firm. Val, please, get out! Bella sighed heavily and stood. I'll be back tomorrow. Think about it. After she left, a nurse entered carrying fresh bandages. As she changed Val's dressing, she slipped something onto the bedside table, a single black rose with a note tucked into the stem. Val's heart jumped as she unfolded the paper with trembling fingers. 2 words in elegant script. Wait for me. The safe house felt more like a prison with each passing day. Val stood at the window, watching rain streak down the bulletproof glass as another dreary Chicago afternoon faded into evening. Her side ached where the bullet had torn through her, a constant reminder of that chaotic day at the warehouse. 2 weeks of headlines flashed through her mind. Ricci Rossi War claims 5 more. Chicago's underworld in flames. Mafia violence spreads to suburbs. Each story mentioned mounting casualties, but never the names she searched for. You need to eat something, Agent Torres, the rookie assigned to the night shift, said from his post by the door. He gestured to the untouched sandwich on the coffee table. Val ignored him, her thoughts on Bella's visit earlier that day. Her former friend had arrived with fresh intel, trying once again to convince Val to cooperate. Luca Ricci survived the warehouse, Bella had told her, sliding crime scene photos across the table. Lost a lot of blood, but he made it out with his brother. Gio's gone completely dark since then, hunting Joey across state lines according to our sources. The news about Luca had been a relief, but it was Bella's next revelation that truly caught Val's attention. The bureau's expanded the investigation. Those medical facilities Vega showed at the deal. We're finding connections to an international trafficking network. This is bigger than just Chicago mob families now. A flicker in her peripheral vision pulled Val from the memory. The lights wavered once, twice, then plunged the safe house into darkness. Stay where you are, Torres called out, fumbling for his flashlight. Before he could activate it, there was a soft thud. When the lights hummed back to life seconds later, Torres lay unconscious on the floor. And there stood Bella. No, not Bella. The woman had her friend's height and coloring, but subtle differences became apparent as she moved closer. A practiced body double. Mr. Ricci sends his regards, the woman said in a voice nothing like Bella's. We have about 3 minutes before the backup generator triggers the alarm system. She pulled an envelope from her jacket. Joey's been working with Rossi for years. He's in Miami now, taunting Mr. Ricci with information about his sister. Says he helped arrange her disappearance back then, kept her location secret as insurance. Val's hands shook as she opened the envelope, finding a burner phone and a keycard inside. The phone has directions to a private airstrip, the woman continued, moving to the window and checking sightlines. Mr. Ricci has arranged certain agreements with sympathetic agents in the Bureau. You'll have immunity once this is done, in exchange for helping bring down Rossi and the trafficking operation. Why should I trust this? Val asked, even as she pocketed the items. Because you've seen his files, you know what he's really fighting against. The woman checked her watch. 2 minutes. There's a maintenance door in the basement. Key card will get you through. Car's waiting 2 blocks south. Val thought of the documents she'd found in Gio's office, evidence of his years-long mission to dismantle trafficking operations, of the grief that drove him to find his sister while saving others from the same fate. She nodded once and moved toward the door. Oh, and Val. The woman's lips curved in a knowing smile. He hasn't slept since the warehouse. Hasn't stopped looking for a way to get you out safely. The escape route was exactly as described. Within 15 minutes, Val was in a nondescript sedan heading toward the outskirts of the city. Her heart pounded with each mile, memories of the warehouse replaying in her mind. Gio's promise before he disappeared into the chaos. The rose and note that arrived in her hospital room. The private airstrip emerged from the darkness, a small jet idling on the tarmac. And there, illuminated by the plane's lights, stood Gio. He looked exhausted, dark circles under his eyes and stubble shadowing his jaw. But when he saw her, the tension in his shoulders eased for the first time in 2 weeks. Val broke into a run, ignoring the protest from her healing wound. Gio met her halfway, pulling her against him with desperate intensity. I thought, her voice cracked. When I didn't hear anything, I had to make sure it was safe, he murmured into her hair. Had to find the right people to deal with, make the arrangements. Joey's been feeding information to Rossi for years, watching my every move. I couldn't risk him knowing I was coming for you. Val pulled back enough to see his face. The FBI deal. Certain agents want the trafficking network more than they want me. Once we bring down Rossi and Vega's operation, you'll have full immunity. His jaw tightened. Joey's in Miami, flaunting what he knows about Francesca, using her location as leverage. I think I might know where she is, Val said. In your office files, there were recurring mentions of a Swiss clinic. When I saw Vega's photos of those facilities, she swallowed hard. One of them matched. Gio's hands tightened on her arms, hope and fury warring in his expression. You're sure? We need that tablet from Joey to confirm. But yes, I'm sure. A crew member appeared at the plane's door, signaling it was time to board. Gio kept his arm around Val as they walked toward the jet, both knowing that finding Joey was just the beginning. Somewhere in Miami, the man who had betrayed them waited, holding the key to both justice and redemption. Miami's heat pressed against the penthouse windows as Val studied surveillance photos spread across the marble dining table. 3 days of careful observation had yielded a complex web of players in Rossi's local operation. This security rotation suggests they're protecting something valuable, she said, pointing to time-stamped images of guard changes at the beachfront mansion. Or someone. Assistant Director James Reynolds leaned closer, his weathered face grim. Our satellite imaging confirms increased activity in the past 48 hours. If Luke is being held there, they'll move him soon. Gio stood at the floor-to-ceiling windows, his reflection hard and focused. Joey knows we're closing in. He's using my brother as bait. Val watched him, noting the tension in his shoulders. She'd learned more about the FBI's involvement since arriving in Miami. How Reynolds had been working with Gio for months, recognizing that sometimes justice required unconventional alliances. The security pattern has one weakness, Val said, arranging photos in sequence. Every day, at 3 a.m., there's a 2-minute gap when they change the waterfront patrol. Reynolds nodded approvingly. Your eye for detail is exactly why we need you in on this operation. No. Gio turned sharply. She's done enough. The raid is too dangerous. I'm going. Val met his gaze steadily. You need someone who can find that tablet quickly while the teams handle security. I memorized every detail of its case when Vega showed it. The argument that followed was fierce but brief. They both knew she was right. Time was critical, and she had the best chance of locating the vital intelligence. Later that night, Val found Gio in the penthouse's music room, his fingers moving restlessly over piano keys without pressing them. I can't lose you too, he said without turning. Val placed her hand on his shoulder. You won't. But Luca needs all of us, and that tablet is our only chance of finding Francesca. The raid launched at exactly 3 a.m. Val moved with the second team, her FBI tactical vest feeling alien compared to the designer clothes she'd worn as Gio's girlfriend all week. Reynolds coordinated from a command vehicle, while Gio led the primary assault team. The first explosion breached the mansion's gates, followed by synchronized entries at 4 points. Val split from her team the moment they cleared the main floor, heading for the office she'd identified as Joey's based on surveillance patterns. The tablet wasn't in any obvious places. Val methodically searched cabinets and drawers, her heart pounding with each distant gunshot. In a hidden wall safe, she found a leather portfolio filled with documents, financial records, medical reports, and photos of a Swiss medical facility. Looking for something? Joey's voice came from the doorway, his gun trained on her. It's over, Joey, Val said, keeping her voice steady. We already know about the clinic where you're keeping Francesca. His smile turned cruel. You think finding her location matters? You have no idea what we've done to her, what she's become. That knowledge is my insurance. No, Val replied. It's your confession. Joey's eyes widened as he registered the active recording device on her vest. He lunged forward with a snarl of rage. 3 shots cracked in rapid succession. Joey's body jerked as Gio's bullets found their mark, his final expression one of shocked betrayal as he collapsed. Val? Gio's voice was raw with concern. I'm okay. She pulled the tablet from where it had fallen behind Joey's desk. We need to find Luca. They found him in a windowless room off the wine cellar, barely conscious after days of torture. As medical teams worked to stabilize him, Reynolds coordinated with Swiss authorities using the evidence they'd recovered. The clinic is being raided as we speak, he informed them hours later at the Miami FBI field office. Combined with the data from Vega's tablet and Joey's files, we're looking at over 300 victims identified, multiple facilities exposed. Val gripped Gio's hand as Reynolds continued. As agreed, Ms. Carter has full immunity. Mr. Ricci, given your cooperation and the extraordinary circumstances, we've arranged certain protections, limited but sufficient to allow you to focus on your sister's recovery. What kind of condition is she in? Val asked softly. Reynolds' expression tightened. She's been kept in a medically induced coma for years. The doctors are beginning to bring her out of it, but the psychological trauma. He paused. It will be a long road. Gio's grip on Val's hand tightened painfully, but his voice remained controlled. When can we see her? The medical transport is being arranged. Given her condition, they'll bring her to a private facility in Chicago once she's stable enough to travel. Val thought of the young girl in the photos she'd seen in Gio's office, how happy and full of life Francesca had been before her abduction, the long years of darkness that followed. The sister Gio had never stopped searching for. We'll get through this, she whispered, and felt Gio's fingers relax slightly in response. Together, he agreed, his eyes fixed on the horizon beyond the office windows, where dawn was finally breaking over Miami's skyline. The autumn sunlight streamed through floor-to-ceiling windows as Val adjusted Gio's tie before the press conference. The newly established Francesca Ricci Foundation headquarters occupied the top floor of a renovated historic building in downtown Chicago, its modern interior designed to feel welcoming rather than imposing. You're nervous, Val observed, smoothing the Italian silk beneath her fingers. Terrified, Gio admitted with a slight smile. Give me a room full of enemies any day over reporters and cameras. Just remember why we're doing this. Val's hand rested over his heart. Every victim we help is one more person given their life back. In the 6 months since they'd rescued Francesca, they'd witnessed both heartbreak and hope. The psychological damage from her years in captivity ran deep. But with intensive therapy and the unwavering support of her brothers, small fragments of the vibrant girl she'd once been occasionally surfaced, her experience had become the driving force behind the Foundation's mission. The press conference announced the Foundation's opening, along with its first initiative, a network of safe houses and rehabilitation centers across 3 countries. What the public wouldn't know was that the locations had been carefully chosen to intercept major trafficking routes, turning former criminal infrastructure into a pathway to freedom. Val stood proudly beside Gio as he addressed the cameras, his usual commanding presence softened by genuine passion for their cause. She watched reporters who'd once written headlines about his suspected criminal enterprises, now eagerly noting his philanthropy. Later that evening, they visited Val's father at the private medical facility where he received experimental treatment. Judge Carter's initial hostility toward Gio had gradually transformed into grudging respect as he witnessed their shared dedication to dismantling criminal operations. The doctors say the new protocol is showing promise, Val told Gio as they left her father's room. We might have another year with him? Gio squeezed her hand. Whatever he needs, whatever it takes. Their next stop was dinner with Bella at a small Italian restaurant, neutral territory for these still delicate meetings. Their friendship was healing slowly, built on new foundations of honesty and shared purpose rather than manipulation. The intel from last month's rescue led to 3 more arrests, Bella reported, her FBI badge conspicuously absent tonight. Reynolds says the cooperation between agencies and the Foundation is unprecedented. And how's the adjustment to your new partner? Val asked carefully. Bella sighed. Agent Martinez is by the book, but he's good at his job, and he's not Joey. The betrayal of her former colleague still stung. Speaking of adjustments, Gio interjected, how are the remnants of the Rossi family handling their new leadership? Victoria Rossi is proving to be more reasonable than her uncle, Bella replied. The legitimate business alliance you proposed has kept the peace so far. 2 weeks ago, a faction of Rossi loyalists had tested that peace with an attempted hit on Luca. The swift and decisive response from both families' legitimate security forces, backed by federal oversight, had reinforced the new power structure Gio was building. Val remembered the night of the attempt, how she'd spotted the surveillance car 3 blocks before it made its move. Her warning had given their security team the crucial seconds needed to protect Luca while minimizing civilian casualties. You've changed. The city, Bella mused, studying them both. Not just the criminal landscape, but how power flows, how justice is served. We're trying, Val said simply. Later that night, as they prepared for bed in their penthouse suite, Val caught Gio watching her with an intensity that still made her breath catch. What are you thinking? She asked, recognizing his plotting expression. I'm thinking about anniversaries, he replied mysteriously, and new beginnings. The following week flew by in a blur of foundation work and family obligations. Francesca had a breakthrough in therapy, managing to speak about her captivity for the first time. Luca's wounds from the attack had healed enough for him to resume his role, overseeing their legitimate business expansion. Then came the evening, exactly 1 year after Val's fateful warning. She entered Oro wearing an elegant black dress, finding the usually bustling restaurant eerily silent and empty. Only the private dining room glowed with soft lighting. Gio waited inside, devastatingly handsome in a perfectly tailored suit. The table where she'd first risked everything to warn him was set for an intimate dinner, but he bypassed it to draw her into his arms as music began to play. Dance with me, he murmured against her hair. They swayed together, and Val marveled at how natural it felt now to be held by hands that had both dealt death and shown her such tenderness. Her own hands rested on shoulders that carried enormous burdens, yet always found strength to support her dreams. This past year, Gio began, his voice low and intense. You've transformed everything. My life, my family, my entire world. He reached into his pocket and withdrew a black velvet box. But there's one more transformation I want to make official. Val's breath caught as he opened the box to reveal an exquisite ring. The black diamond at its center was surrounded by smaller white diamonds, the contrast echoing their journey from darkness to light. Valentina Carter, Gio's voice carried all the authority of his position, but trembled slightly with emotion. Will you join our families in every way? Rule this city beside me, not through fear, but through the power of what we've built together. Tears sparkled in Val's eyes as she nodded. Yes. Gio slid the ring onto her finger, then drew her close again. His lips brushed her ear as he whispered, That warning saved me in more ways than you'll ever know. You didn't just save my life, you became my life. They continued dancing as Chicago's lights twinkled beyond the windows, a kingdom transformed by their unconventional love story. The private dining room had become a sanctuary where a waitress's courage and a mafia boss's redemption had forever altered the city's destiny.